Hello, my name is Ben Friedman, host of Ben Bran See, a movie. And today, we were discussing which movie we should talk about. And it just felt like a wasted opportunity if we did not talk Thor Ragnarok. Today, on when we are recording, it is July 5th, 2022, which means this Thursday, July 7th, Thor Ragnarok is sorry, not Thor Ragnarok. Thor Love and Thunder is making its debut in theaters. This is the 29th installment within the MCU. It is the second film within the MCU directed by Taika. It's the third Taika Waititi film we've talked about on Ben Bran See a Movie. We're very excited to talk about this. Joining me today is Branson Indelicato. And yeah, so that's why we're doing Thor Ragnarok. In honor of Thor Love and Thunder, we're going to get our Ragnarok on. Welcome to the show. My name's Ben Friedman, and welcome to Ben Bran See a Movie. All right, welcome to Ben Bran See a Movie, the show where Ben and Bran see movies.
Well, sometimes Bran.
Yeah, sometimes Bran. Joining me today, though, is Branson.
It's me. Ben let me out of the shadow prison. It's a realm that he created with pure hatred and dark magic, and he lets me out from time to time.
Yeah, and I can do it whenever I need to. Like that. Back. It's just me. And now it's him. Our audio listeners are going to be quite confused.
Yeah, that was a purely visual bit. Man, we're going to have to start doing that. Sorry.
We're going to have to start giving
listeners.
Well, so I'm glad we mentioned it now because one of the big things we should note is that this show is now on YouTube.
We're multimedia. This is actually multimedia now.
We are a video platform now, along with our traditional podcasting. So you can watch this if you choose on video on YouTube, or you can do it the classic way on audio via Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, audio is car mode. Please don't watch this while you're driving.
Yes,
if
please.
You're like a passenger, that's okay. But driving, don't.
Yeah, we prefer you not to. This is a pretty cool thing, Branson, because we were talking before we came on air. I have been kind of overwhelmed by the support I've been getting on my YouTube channel right now. I've been getting some help from some of my friends who have been helping me advertise. We've been doing it. I now have a social media presence that is much more stronger, including a TikTok, which has been shockingly successful. So thank you to everyone. Yeah. Thank you to everyone who's subscribed to my TikTok. I've been doing my reviews. I've been posting clips from the podcast and all that. If you want to follow me, I'm at beneverse.media on TikTok. I just do same kind of content I do on YouTube and all that, just a little bit shorter. And it's been really fun. And I've been connecting with a lot of people. So thank you for all that. YouTube-wise, I'm blown away by the amount of support and views I've been getting recently. There
have been quite a few that have been like solid hundreds. Which is a good sign. You've got a good sell of.
I've had multiple recently that have come close to 1,000. So that's pretty humbling. And the fact that I'm getting them back to back and not just one random one in the middle of February, but the fact that I'm actually seeing continued success means the world to me.
It's not just the weird don't look up where everyone was pouncing on you.
So guys,
it's consistent. Everyone's nice.
If you got the second, if you're watching this video or listening, make sure to like and subscribe. It really does help me out. It really does mean the world to me when you do that. And if you have a comment or anything that you want to leave, or leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all of those things always helps me out. Again, always appreciate it. With all that housekeeping kind of out of the way, there's a few more notes that I think we should address. Branson, one of the big things when we were discussing this podcast initially was what day do we release the podcast?
Yeah.
And my idea was Friday, because Friday was traditionally the release day for most modern day movies. It was always Friday was the beginning of the week for the box office. Yeah. What has happened now is studios now start releasing most of their major films Thursday.
Probably around the afternoon. Starts Friday, but then it's
I'm gonna see Thor.
It started as the midnight release, and then it just became like, all right, now we're releasing it actually at like 3 on Thursday, but
Yeah,
they still say Friday.
I'm seeing Thor Love and Thunder Thursday evening, and it just like I decided that it didn't make sense to do the show Friday anymore because now I was kind of old news. So we've decided to shift the show to Thursday. So Ben and Bran See a Movie will now air Thursday mornings at 9 a.m. That way you can listen to the review of said movie. And if it relates to the movie that you will be watching that evening, you'll have the opportunity to do that before the movie releases. So
Yes,
yes,
that's a good
this
idea.
show will now be airing Thursdays at 9 a.m. And Branson, we're still kind of working out exactly how the scheduling is going to work and how this show is going to morph and change a little bit. Right now, it's pretty comfortable to say that you will be on kind of to spearhead the beginning and end of the months.
I somewhere between first and fourth week
Yes.
of the month, or first and third, whether it's better to like alternate or just like do full on bookends. But
Yes.
yeah.
So we're still exact. We're not fully like sold on it. I think that's what we're going to be doing for the time being. And then like that's not a hard set rule. So if there's a random movie that he's like, I want to jump in on this one, and it's in like middle of the month, he'll jump on this one. But for right now, the general plan until we get a few things more sorted out is that it's going to be the beginning and end of the month for him. So he's on obviously beginning of July, and he'll be next on most likely end of July to talk about a movie that we'll have to discuss on air because we actually haven't chosen our topic of discussion for that week.
Whoops.
Whoopsie.
You're
Besides that,
slipping in my absence.
even when Branson's not on, all there will still be a show every Thursday. There will be a variety of ways that we're doing it. Some of those will involve co-host. Chris Harris, I know, will be joining us this month, I believe, for the film Get Out in honor of Jordan Peele's new film Nope. So he'll be joining me for that episode. I'll also have guests. I've been talking to a multitude of guests who will be appearing throughout the next few months, so they'll jump on occasionally. And then semi regularly, I don't want to say often, but I will be occasionally doing the solo podcast where it will just be me. Typically, I don't like doing a full episode breakdown of Ben and Bran See a Movie if it's just solo. So usually I'll kind of dive into almost like a video essay or audio essay, however you want to deal with that, where I'm just talking about some form of specific component. I just did one last week where I'm talking about my 10 favorite films of 2022 so far. Yeah, a lot of 20s. 2022 so far, and my way too early Oscar prediction. So if you want to check that out on the channel. That was last week's video. But yeah, that's what we're doing for right now. Again, stuff's going to change. Stuff's going to develop, and
My camera
we're
just
going to
got
be flexible.
so dark.
I saw
think
that.
Yeah, a cloud, I think, is covering my sun. Dang it. That's my box light right now, dude. Come on.
And last thing before we jump in to the discussion of Thor Ragnarok is, like I said, I'm on social media more. I now have a Letterboxd presence, which is also Beneverse Media. I'm on Twitter. My handle's here at Beneverse_media. TikTok, I already mentioned Beneverse.media. On YouTube, I'm trying to engage way more with the comments. So yeah, I always welcome engagement, and I always love hearing from you guys. So again, if you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. And with that all said, Branson, I think it's time to jump into Thor Ragnarok.
Yes, my son finally came back. Yeah, while you were doing that whole thing, I was like trying to fix lighting, so we're back. Let's do it.
Let's do this. So I already mentioned why we're deciding to do Thor Ragnarok today. Here's some crazy things, Branson. This is the 29th film installment within the MCU.
Insane.
I just wanted to know, are you keeping up fairly well with the MCU right now, or have you fallen off a little bit?
I've fallen off a little bit. There, I don't know. It seems post Endgame, the Marvel fare has been a bit scattered. There have been some amazing films. Both the Spider-Mans post Endgame have been great. Or no, just one.
No, you're
Just
right.
the one.
Far
No, it
From
is
Home
both.
and No Way Home. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. Both of those have been great. I enjoyed both of those. No Way Home was fantastic. I just watched Multiverse of Madness for the first
Oh,
time
what
the
did you
other day
think?
because it came out on Disney Plus. I thought it was okay. It definitely wasn't the best. It wasn't the worst. I'd say it's certainly in the upper half of Marvel movies. I thought it was a little strange that Scarlet Witch became the villain
The
so
villain,
quickly.
yeah.
Retroactive spoiler alert.
We already did a spoiler review on this show, and I'm assuming
I
if you're
guess so.
watching a Thor Ragnarok review,
Yeah,
you're pretty kept up. So,
exactly.
yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I'm keeping up with it for the most part. Definitely films, I go see all of them. That's
Mm-hmm.
like I see too many films not to see all the MCU films, and I like these films too much not to. TV's starting to get a little bit more questionable.
Yeah,
I
that was the other thing
mostly
that I was
kept
going to
up.
mention. That was the other thing that I was going to mention. I think a lot of people, and Star Wars is starting to get this too, which sucks because I love Marvel and Star Wars. It's starting to feel like almost too much content. So it's like if you miss one thing, you're so behind. So it's like, what's the point? Like it took me a
Yeah.
long time to watch Moon Knight. I still haven't watched Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Wait, did you
Still haven't
finish Moon
watched
Knight?
Hawkeye. I did finish Moon Knight.
What did you think?
It was definitely trippy. The first episode was great. I loved the slow burn mystery. That's why I loved WandaVision so much. I love a slow mystery that kind of builds. And then I thought it was a unique setting, a unique framing device. Oscar Isaac's great. He played both Mark Spector and what's British
Stephen
Oscar
Grant.
Isaac's name? Yeah, Stephen Grant. Dr. Stephen Grant. He played two very different characters really well. And there was some interesting. It went in a totally different direction than most Marvel properties have up until this point. The title sequence is like one of my favorites in anything. I love the title sequence. All the animations and stuff are so cool. But I thought it was fairly good.
I thought you watched the show for Oscar Isaac. Like he's like the best part of the show.
He is.
And then like I'm still so, and we don't have to get into a huge conversation on this now. I'm kind of on the boat that a lot of the TV shows have currently felt like, why didn't you just make that a movie?
Yeah.
And that was my thing with Moon Knight. I was like,
that's what I was thinking as well.
It's a little bit too, maybe it would be a little bit too long or a little too weird, and you really have to dive into the backstory of Stephen Grant and how exactly he becomes who he is.
Mm-hmm.
But like there was times where watching it where I'm like, this could definitely be a movie, and I think I would almost prefer it because the budget's not fully there for TV still. There's still some wonky effects at times.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of the effects looked really awesome. The
there are some really good
amazing.
ones.
But some of the fully CG character, I thought that what's the Skullbird guy? I can't remember.
Yeah,
Khonshu.
I can't think of the name. Khonshu, yeah.
I thought Khonshu looked freaking cool.
I thought it was a good design, yeah.
Yeah, and then the hippo goddess, I can't remember what her name is, but some of that looked a little strange, and it's like hard to nail.
It gets a little wonky.
It's hard to nail the look of CG animals, especially if they're talking. But for the most part, it looked really, really good.
Yeah, no, like I said, I think the interesting thing with the MCU right now is also something they can't control, which is just that we are overabundant amount of superhero content daily at our disposal. This is crazy. I mean, I am currently watching like every week something new within the superhero genre, whether that's, series like Miss Marvel, which I'm trying to keep up with, whether it's like stuff like
I've heard
Boys,
good things
which
about
I am.
that.
I really like Miss Marvel, but I'm watching The Boys every Friday morning, which I'm keeping up with. Then
It's
you
like a
have
Saturday
like,
morning cartoon,
yeah,
except
then you
it's
got
live action and bloody.
then you have like the MCU stuff coming out basically every 2 to 3 months, probably about every 3 months. Then of course you randomly get like a DC, then Sony has their own stuff. Then like there's these other like contingent things that are superhero related, even if they're not the characters you'd like. No, Sandman's gonna be coming out on Netflix. Then there's other stuff like Invincible. Then there's the Umbrella Academy. I have an overabundant amount of access to superhero content right now, which is
Mhm.
why it's so hard to kind of keep up with everything. And I notice the stuff that I keep up with are the ones either from franchises that I'm just going to watch. I'm going to watch the MCU and DC universe basically till I'm gone.
Mhm.
Those are the characters that I know the best. But then, like, the other stuff is like the more intriguing, interesting ones, the ones that feel a little bit more unique. And talking about unique, it's Taika Waititi. This
Yeah.
is a very Taika film, and it's very interesting because like I said, we've talked about Taika before on this podcast. We've talked 2 films before with Jojo Rabbit and What We Do in the Shadows. And what those 2 films and Thor Ragnarok, I think, have in common is they are fully Taika films. They
Mhm.
feel like a Taika film. You can you can pick apart the moments that are like that is a Taika written dialogue or that is a
Mhm.
Taika Waititi improvisation. That's
Mhm.
what this film has. Uh, and yeah, I'm excited to see Thor Love and Thunder. The fact that he wrote Thor Love and Thunder actually gets me more excited for the film, not because
That
I
is
don't
exciting.
care if it's a good MCU film. I whatever anymore. For me it is kind of whatever. It is like kind of an afterthought. But if
Mhm.
I'm getting a new Taika film, who's one of my
Yeah.
favorite directors and creators right now. So I'm more excited for this film as a Taika Waititi film than I am as a superhero film.
I think something else that has me excited for Love and Thunder, and my wife is even excited, and she's uh,
Isn't
I don't
she a
want to
big
say
Taika fan?
I don't. I think so. I think she does like Taika Waititi. I mean, we both love What We Do in the Shadows. Sorry, I just bumped my mic. We both love What We Do in the Shadows. It's like our favorite. I think as far as like the MCU, she's not as, I guess, into it as I am, or to like the certain degree. I don't want to say she's a novice, but there's definitely more. I'm trying to think of a nice way to say it. I think I would beat her in a
She's
trivia
a casual
competition.
fan. She's a casual fan who
Yeah,
doesn't go
even
out of her
casual
way to
sounds
watch
kind of
everything.
negative, but I
She likes what she likes in it, but she's not going to be completely kept up with every story.
yeah,
Where I know
yeah.
basically most of the history going on right now in the MCU and where it
hmm
falls in the timeline.
hmm
Uh,
And if I don't, if there's something that I don't quite understand, I will look it up and then like read into it and kind of learn a little bit more. And then she will ask me, and then I'll kind of give her a summary of what I just read.
yeah, yeah,
I'd beat her in a trivia competition.
yeah.
But we're both excited for Love and Thunder. I think the fact that Taika took what was, I think Thor's a really cool hero, but his 2 standalone movies up into Ragnarok were sort of,
Varying degrees of
yeah,
success
very
and
degrees
failure.
of quality. They were good to meh. I think Thor:
Yeah,
The Dark World is one of the
I think it's the weakest
lower tier.
installment.
I think it's one of the lower tier, if not the lowest, of the MCU. And the way that Taika was able to take this established hero and like re-inject some life into his solo adventures was really cool,
Yeah,
and made him fun, but it wasn't so jarring because at this point he's been with the Avengers, he's been around the likes of Tony Stark and like all these other sassy characters. So he's kind of picked up some of the mannerisms a little bit. He's kind of loosened up. He's no longer the "what vile deed is this?"
yeah,
He's more like, "What's your problem, man?"
yeah.
You know,
And we're
that's
gonna
that's kind
talk
of where he
about
went.
like Taika reinvents Thor and
Yes.
basically dictates Thor's arc through Infinity War and Endgame. I mean,
Yeah.
he
While you
completely
introduce us a little bit
redefines it.
more, While you introduce us a bit more, I'm going to open the door because I can hear the cat just begging to be let inside. So we're going to have
Sounds
a
good.
third guest.
Sounds good. And I'll start with the film historian now because this is the getting the description of the film over with. So, and apologies if because I am just reading straight from my notes. Thor Ragnarok is the 17th film within the MCU. So this is 12 films ago, which is crazy considering this film was only released in 2017. It released in November of 2017, and the film follows Thor, who learns of a horrible family secret involving his family Odin and a sister he never knew about, Hela, the goddess of death. Having been released from her imprisonment, Hela returns to Asgard to reclaim her kingdom and exact revenge on her family. The film stars Chris Hemsworth, Tom Hiddleston, Idris Elba, and Anthony Hopkins, all reprising their roles from the previous Thor installments. Joining them is Mark Ruffalo, returning as the Hulk, and newcomers Cate Blanchett, Jeff Goldblum, Tessa Thompson, and Carl Urban joining the cast. This film marks the 5th directorial effort by Taika Waititi. This is not the first time he and Disney had worked together. He initially had written the script for Moana, but they decided to go a different direction. But so they had interest in working with Taika Waititi for a while.
Taika wrote the script for Moana?
He
Or the
almost
first
wrote the
script?
script. The first script,
Oh, wow.
and then it did not get picked up. What's interesting is Taika is a pretty household name now. I think in terms of like celebrity status, he has definitely a celebrity A-list status. And Marvel really invents this with this film. Taika's doing the press for this film. He's out there with Chris Hemsworth. He's out there with Tom Hiddleston, Jeff Goldblum, all that, doing the press. Obviously, as well, because he's a character within this film, he is quite literally the director and actor within this film. But right when this film comes out, he's not quite a household name. He is a name amongst really hardcore movie fans. He had just popped in the scene with Hunt for the Wilder People in 2016, which I think was probably his biggest success. And then What We Do in the Shadows, which What We Do in the Shadows really had a resurgence after Thor Ragnarok. Like all of Taika Waititi's work, you can feel his style of direction, including improv, bright color palettes, and family drama. What's really interesting to note, though, which is something I was found surprising, is Taika did not write Thor Ragnarok. It just feels
Really?
like such a Taika Waititi film, but it's not. It's actually written by 3 guys, Eric Pearson, Craig Kyle, and Christopher Yost. All have connections within the MCU. Yost is a screenwriter for Thor, The Dark World, Pearson for Captain Carter, Spider-Man Homecoming, and then most recently written Black Widow. And Kyle has been a storyboard writer for Thor forever. He's been working in some of the animated stuff before the MCU was around, and he was consulting on the previous 2 films. This is his first time getting to write within the MCU. So you can feel that there is an emphasis on having some of the more people who understand Thor joining in with Kyle's inclusion. What I find very interesting is this film, Branson, follows a very typical Waititi story, and it unfolds in a very similar narrative fashion to the rest of his films. The first act introduces our main character, and he exists within the world and his community. Here, the comedy is at its heaviest when we're learning about the character's eccentricities and characteristics, making our hero relatable. Our heroes are almost always within their own way of life. This is how they've done it. This is how they know it. And then something happens in the second
they have
and third.
their modus operandi, and then something challenges their preconception, I guess.
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
like their status quo.
yeah. And in Jojo Rabbit, it's the introduction of the Jewish girl, What We Do in the Shadows' new roommate, Thor Ragnarok. It's the lies of his family's deception to him, which shapes his worldview. And yeah, and before we end the film historian segment of this, I think it is really important to note that Thor Ragnarok debuts on November 3rd, 2017 to strong critical praise. It's both loved by critics and audiences, 93% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, with the average score being a 7.6 out of 10. On Rotten Tomatoes for the audience review, it's at an 87%. Letterboxd has the film at a 3.9 out of 5 stars. So this is a pretty beloved film from fans and critics.
The audience
Uh,
score is lower than critic score. Wow.
yeah, 89%. The film's budget is $180 million, and it ends up grossing $854 million at the box office. It's a huge success.
Solid.
Get ready for this, Branson. It's the ninth highest grossing film of 2017. Disney had five of the highest grossing films of that year.
Oh, wow.
They had at number one The Last Jedi at 1.3 billion, Beauty and the Beast at 1.27 billion, Spider-Man Homecoming at 880 million, and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 at number 8 at 863 million. And remember, Thor Ragnarok's at 854. So Spider-Man, Guardians, and this film are all very comparable to
Neck
one
and neck,
another.
yeah. I'm
Uh,
surprised that Beauty and the Beast was that high.
I
As
can't believe
opposed
Beauty and
to
the Beast made like
that's
1.25.
that blows my mind. As
That's a
opposed to
crazy
three
number.
Marvel movies, and none of them beat it. Wow.
Yeah, that's a crazy number. So they had the number one, the number two, the number six, the number eight, and the number nine that year, which is just a
Wow.
crazy feat.
Hail the Disney overlords.
Yeah, and two last important notes, and this might be a good way to jump into our film discussion, and that's context of this film. I was thinking about when this film came out, and there's two really important films that are to come out later at the end of 2017 in the next 6 weeks, and that's Justice League and Star Wars The Last Jedi. And I think they're both interesting for different reasons. One, Justice League debuts 2 weeks after Thor Ragnarok on November 17th. It ends up grossing $657 million on a $300 million budget. So the film does
$600 or six. What'd you say? 6 million or 600 million?
$657 million.
Okay, on a
Yeah,
$3 million budget. Okay.
yeah, rough for them. Of course, Justice League has so many issues due to the Whedon situation of it all. But I think it's really important because one, we see a film succeed because Disney has trust in Waititi, and Warner Brothers fails because they don't have trust in Snyder. And then last thing to note is I feel like Thor Ragnarok is the last time everyone kind of universally agreed / wasn't really fighting about a Disney film. The division becomes really strong post The Last Jedi.
Yeah, we have evidence of that on this very show.
Yeah, and like I said, and we're talking about simply the disagreement right there. We're not even touching on some of the political wars that The Last Jedi encountered, including
and we're not talking Senate. We're not talking separatists versus the Republic.
Yeah, we're not talking about the fact that terms were thrown around like SJW, Asian propaganda, liberal agenda, woke trolling, all that, all those issues that surrounded The Last Jedi.
You
and
just
it
either
felt like
boosted or effed your own SEO right there.
Like I said, they come in waves, I feel like, after the Last Jedi. I feel like a lot of the films post The Last Jedi are now going to be embroiled in those discussions, including Black Panther, which comes out 2 months after, Captain Marvel, which comes out in 2019. Of course, every Star Wars movie post The Last Jedi. It just feels like there is a typical agreement that no longer existed after this film. After The Last Jedi came out. Not saying this is the end-all be-all rule. Star Wars The Force Awakens definitely had some of those issues, and there's always been a division between Marvel versus DC fandom that will never see eye to eye. Batman versus Superman is, again, another example of just disagreement overwhelming the internet. But I do think it's important to
again,
note that
another
Ragnarok,
example that we have on our show.
Yeah, but again, Ragnarok it has that. But with that all said, I think it's time that we can finally jump into the main meat and potatoes of the show with our film discussion. And we're going to start it off with our Hill to Die On. So, Branson, for the Hill to Die On, give me a one-sentence Hill to Die On about Thor Ragnarok. That is your thesis statement for this movie.
I kind of said it already, but I'll take it a step further. Taika Waititi re-injected life into Thor as a standalone character, and I think also brought a certain energy into I think the regular cast of heroes that was previously relegated to just Guardians of the Galaxy. Guardians of the Galaxy, I think, was the more like felt a little bit more free to have fun, felt a little bit more free to be funny, or like a little goofy. And Taika really, I think, blurred the line, broke down the walls of like, no, these other heroes can be goofy funny too.
Yeah,
and that sort of those more goofy moments of levity show up more after Ragnarok. I mean, we even get them quite a few times in Endgame, and it's like, this is supposed to be the most serious, dire stakes movie in the MCU thus far, and we still have those sort of goofy moments that aren't just funny dialogue.
Yeah, Favreau and Robert Downey Jr. set it up at the beginning that the MCU is always going to have an improvisational feel to it, and especially in its comedy. Gunn kind of reinvents that and takes that further with odder characters, and Thor Ragnarok with Waititi is kind of the perfect blend of those, of the improvisational feel along with the odder character choices and odder, not less mainstream feel to comic book films. My Hill to Die On is simply, as of recording today, July 5th, 2022. Sorry, I keep doing that. July 5th, 2022. Thor Ragnarok is the best MCU film today.
Really?
It's my favorite MCU film.
Okay.
This is my favorite one.
That's defensible.
Yeah, I love this film. I love everything it is, and I think it's the most rewatchable MCU film. I can put this film on, and I'm laughing throughout. I think it's the best story. I think it's the best characters. I just think this film has everything, and it's so largely due to Waititi and the cast involved in this film. And that, I think, leads to such a natural transition to filmmaking strengths about this film. So, Branson, I have a handful of filmmaking strengths, so we can kind of just go back and forth, because I'm sure we're going to have a bunch of the same, but I'll start with one of mine, and that's the visuals within Thor Ragnarok. I think the color palette, the trash roll, the Sakaar, the realization of Thor's powers in slow motion, specifically the shot jumping into battle as Led Zeppelin's Immigrant Song rages on, all of it just, it's so good. This film is so visually interesting compared to a lot of the other MCU films. Waititi does choose to do a much brighter palette in this film. His approach has always been find the fun in life, and you can feel that throughout this film. The visuals are just outstanding. There's a lot more of a just bright feeling. I mean, even the Rainbow Bridge, which is in the other Thor films, it just feels more lively, and everything just feels more alive just due to the color choices. He makes the world feel lived in with just literal lights. Like, the fact that this film is so bright is matching with the aesthetic of the screenplay.
Yeah, I don't think the MCU ever got as gray as DC usually looks. DC's definitely got a much more gritty sort of vibe going on with the DC EU. No, DCU.
No, you're right. DCEU.
DCEU.
I think it's called Worlds of DC now, but we'll know one day what they're doing.
Whatever.
They gotta figure out their Ezra Miller situation first.
Yeah, they gotta figure out a lot of things, dude. Yeah. DC is in a friggin' mess now.
They got some controversies.
Yeah. But the Thor films, I feel like both Thor and Thor: The Dark World were very overcast. Compared to Ragnarok, which is just this sunny, dare I say, electric, like feast for the eyes. Like, you could look. I feel like with Ragnarok, you could pick any given scene or any given frame and have more fun sort of looking at different parts of the scene or different parts of the frame than you could with the previous two Thor films, the previous two standalone Thor films.
You know what it is? It's this film embraces the Jack Kirby cover art of the 1960s, 1970 Marvel comics, where it
Yeah,
essentially like you have to give the reader a reason to pick up that comic book and flip through
right.
it. And so
Exactly.
there's
It's the
something just
hook.
aesthetically pleasing. So like when you see it, you see these Kirby illustrations from the 60s. They're so
Mhm.
bright and lively and they're just so fun to look at. And the art visuals are just something that could only be thought of in the 1960s Kirby acid mind. And that's what this
Mhm.
film fully embraces. It's like why make a film that you've seen before? Why not push the medium and do something so visually interesting? It also does this because this film's not on Earth. The other Thor films are largely on Earth. This one is like, let's explore the vastness of this world and
Yeah,
these
we have a huge
galaxies.
universe. We have a huge universe here. We
Yeah,
should
let's make
see
it
some of these
cosmic.
places. Yeah,
Yeah,
I that's something that always bugs me. Not only about superhero movies, but any sort of we've got to save the world kind of movies.
mhm,
80% of the time, the world that is in need of saving is Earth, or the world that this story is taking place on is just Earth. And it's like we've
mhm.
all seen Earth. We have a general idea of what this looks like. And in a franchise that spans, dimensions, let's see some interesting stuff,
Yeah. No,
and
totally
and it
agree.
also and it also you get a view of other places aside from Earth that will be affected later on come Infinity War when half the universe gets zapped.
Mhm.
We know we've seen these other places. We've seen Sakaar. We've seen the people of Asgard. We've seen these other like all these places that the Guardians of the Galaxy go to, Xandar and Nowhere, like all these places, and we can visualize that those places just got snapped too. It's not just faceless anymore. It's not just I guess there's only 3.5 billion people left in the world now because we were on Earth, right?
Yeah, no,
It's
it's a galaxy.
Yeah, we lost trillions
it,
of
it makes
people.
the it makes everything feel so much more alive, and that kind of leads me to another point, Branson, of some of my filmmaking strengths with this movie as well. I had the integration into the MCU. I think is pretty flawless in this movie. Just
Hmm.
continuing his story arc from Ultron, adding Bruce Banner into the movies, the jabs at the first Avengers movies with Point Break and Tony Stark's bright tight jeans. I think that all really works in a really satisfying way. And along with
Hmm.
that, this film also is able to expand it with some great character introductions. Hela, Valkyrie, Korg, and the Grandmaster are arguably four of the most interesting characters the MCU has ever added, and they add them seamlessly within this film. I
Hmm.
mean, they're literally like four great additions that help make this movie, and they each bring their own unique sensibilities within it.
We haven't seen too much of Christian Bale yet as the God Killer in
Yeah,
Love and
and Love and
Thunder,
Thunder.
and yeah, we'll see more of him, of course, when the movie comes out. But Hela, up to this point, is the most memorable villain that Thor
Mhm.
has to face, and probably the most menacing,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it's shown that she can destroy armies without the need for a some world killing device. She can spawn swords out of nothing.
She
She mows down the entire Asgard army, and
and she
all she
reinvents
needs
Thor
is yeah, exactly. She
because she breaks
cripples
the hammer.
Thor.
She
Yeah.
literally breaks the hammer, which is like what we know about Thor is he has more in here. You're taking the cat out real quick. So I'll continue with that. Yeah, it's just such a great reinvention of Thor. Like that scene where Hela goes and she breaks the hammer. That is the introduction of this is not a typical Thor film. When she snaps that hammer, you're like, who is Thor? And that's what Thor's left reeling with. Who am I and what am I if I am not with the hammer? And it's the
Right.
lesson that he has to learn. Like, you're not the god of hammers, you're the god of thunder. And the
Hmm.
hammer is a tool that you use, but it is not your powers. And it's
Exactly.
such a great realization. So those are a few of my filmmaking strengths. I have a few more, but Branson, do you have any? Because I have, like I said, I have a feeling we're going to have a few of the same.
Yeah, probably. The I mean the acting, or I'm sorry. Well, I mean the acting's great too.
Yeah, I have
But
the cast as well.
the dialogue is so enjoyable. There are moments of seriousness, but everyone kind of talks to each other like real people. The writing for Thor, especially, like I mentioned before, is so funny. He's so much looser now. He's not this rough and tumble, super serious, old timey speaking god.
Hmm.
Now he he's still a hero, but he's got a little bit more wit to him, where it's like, okay, this is another tool in his toolbox. His interactions, especially when he's on Sakaar, are hilarious. I love how he interacts with Jeff Goldblum's character in The Grandmaster, and with Korg, and well, I guess Meek doesn't really say anything. His reactions, or his interactions with Korg, are hilarious. The way that he is so much more aware of Loki and his schemes is
Yeah.
just great. Like, he's able to turn Loki's Loki's weaknesses on him finally.
Hmm.
It's just enjoyable to see, like, okay, we've actually, this is a different Thor, a grown Thor, as opposed to where we saw him last.
I want to take a second, real quick, to address one of the beats that you hit with it with Loki, because that's again when I'm talking about the cast and how strong this cast is. I think the huge MVPs of this film are Thor and Loki, and
Mm.
that's largely due to just again how they choose to tell this story. I love the scene. It's one of the most important scenes within the MCU, and especially within this film, because it totally shapes Loki's redemption arc in Infinity War. It's the scene where they're going up the elevator and Loki and Thor are talking, and Thor says, "Loki, I thought the world of you, but ultimately you are who you are."
Mm-hmm.
That's such an important scene that just defines this relationship of Thor and Loki. And it's these little moments. Waititi talks about it in the director's commentary. Much of this film, he claims about 80% of this film is improv. You can believe that or you cannot. But what this film is,
80%.
you
That is
here's
an
what I do
insane
believe.
number.
I believe a lot of the scenes where this is the beats we have to hit, how we get from beat to beat with the dialogue, that is kind of up to the actors to hit. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that feeling comes across because a lot of the conversations feel much more genuine. And with that, also the comedy just feels really organic. I'm going to just rattle off some great one liners, Branson. You can
Yes,
stop me if
please
there's
do.
some that you like or if there's a few after it that I didn't mention. The whole Revengers is great. Asgard is hysterical. Piss off
What is
Ghost.
this? Yeah, what is this? Ass place, Asperg,
Yeah.
Asgard.
Asgard. And then Hulk like real fire is maybe my favorite comedy beat in this film. Uh, Actually, my favorite comedy beat in this film is, whoa, the hammer pulled you off
Yeah.
when he's
Whoa, my
talking
God,
about,
the hammer pulled you off.
and then
Off the ground.
yeah, and then he's a friend from work.
Yeah. Oh,
All great lines.
do you know where that came from?
Isn't that an improvisation from Hemsworth?
It is an improvisation, but I think that he was doing, I think he was visiting like a children's hospital or
Oh yeah,
something.
he's building like a St. Jude's, and one of the kids
Yeah.
suggests it.
Yeah. I can't remember if it was a Make-A-Wish kid,
Yeah, it was a Make a
or
Wish. I did hear about this. It's a Make a Wish
and the
kid.
kid that he met, I saw him talking about it on like Jimmy Kimmel or something, and he mentioned that he was telling him about Ragnarok, and the kid mentioned that you should say, oh, he's a friend from work, and then he did that. I'm like, oh, that's such a funny line.
And it is
And that's
because it also, you get Hiddleston to react to it. Where
yeah,
Hiddleston's like,
exactly.
Hiddleston's terrified like look,
I need to
the
get off this
exact
planet.
second he realizes it's the Hulk, is
Mhm.
fantastic. Like I said, the comedy beats are just so perfect in this film. And then, do you have any more? Because I have one more filmmaking strength.
I mean, the hammer pulled you off is such a funny
My God, the hammer
interjection.
pulled you off.
Oh my God, the hammer pulled you off. The ground pulled me off the ground.
So it sounds like you had an intimate relationship with your hammer, and losing the hammer was like losing a loved one.
Akin to losing a loved one. Yes.
Waititi is hysterical as core.
The first or one of the earlier scenes with the Doctor Strange cameo was really enjoyable, where it's like the Thor is in this totally, like, this is a totally different kind of magic that he is not used to, so he's just getting jerked around this whole like mystical house. And then the appearance of Loki, and he threatens Doctor Strange. Well, sorcerer, let me show you real man. Oh, okay, you're done. Bye. And then he just throws, like, shadow casts him back into some, like, a totally different plane. It's so good.
So the last strength that I do want to address is the exploration of Asgard's history. This is sneakily what makes this film so interesting.
Yeah.
This film explores the evils of imperialism and how it is impossible for an empire expanding to be altruistically good. Like, that's what at the center of this film. That's what this film is about.
It's that idea of revisionist history, right? Where it's the victor writes the history books, and it's like you're building these golden castles on, like, the bodies of these worlds and these realms that you've massacred. And sure, now there are these, garden parties and drinks are flowing and peace treaties exist now, but
you had to become big enough to do that.
Right, exactly.
And it's the fact that Asgard's history is built upon these lies and bloodshed, conquest, and cruelty that, like I said, when we're talking about reinvention, that completely changes Thor's worldview, because he did think Asgard was altruistically good. And then learning who his father is, it's something that he has to deal with. And then learning, of course, of the existence of a sister who's a blood murdering warrior. She will kill for kill's sake. She does not shed away from bloodshed.
Yeah, it's interesting too how she is sort of the mirror of Odin in a way, where it's Odin and Hela at one point were these imperialist, like, we're going to conquer everything and unify everything. But Hela is sort of this diverging path, this fork in the road, where Odin is like, we've overextended. We have gone too far. And he probably saw the extreme version of himself in Hela and realized, oh my gosh, like, he finally had the mirror turned on himself. So that idea of Odin being the one that's holding her back makes a lot of sense. It's like, hey, what we're doing is wrong. It's like, no, you're just too weak to fully see this through.
Yeah, and it's the secret he chooses to hide.
Right. It's like, I want to distance myself as much as I can from this past. And he's like he's tried to, like, unify, he's tried to make amends, but there's still that guilt, and that guilt exists in the form of Hela. She is like a real artifact of, this is where I went wrong. I can point to this. I can point to your sister and be like, that's symbolic of my mistakes.
It makes this film so much more interesting that they're willing to, like, dive into the fact that, like, an empire is built on these foundations, and addressing the foundations really does just move the characters forward in a really interesting way, because it not only shapes Thor, it shapes Loki just as much.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I love this all.
Yeah, it adds more context to why Loki kind of exists within this world. He was a result of, maybe the first little cracks in Odin's
He,
facade of like, I conquered Jotunheim,
yeah,
and this is one thing that I can make the right choice with.
he sees Odin more for who he is, because
Mm-hmm.
Loki and Odin's relationship is much more strained than Thor's and Odin's.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, let's just talk about elements that either didn't age well or just don't work particularly in the film. I don't have a ton. I'll have two, and if you have any more, you can add it onto it. The CGI of the grassy field when Thor, Loki, and Odin are talking for the first time right before Hela appears, it's clearly a reshot. It's clearly green screen. Waititi admits it himself in the director's commentary that this is shot in a backlot in Atlanta, Georgia.
Mm.
So it's like, that's one scene that I'm just like, why couldn't you just go to a grassy field? It's sometimes them choosing to just keep it a little bit cheaper and just shooting on like their backlot than
Right.
for actually just like going out and just shooting it. It's like, come on, you could have done that and would have made it just like feel a little bit more alive. That's such a small nitpick. My only real complaint with this film is the comedic beat that follows the destruction of Asgard. Now, it's a very funny line.
It is.
The damage is not too bad. As long as the foundations are still strong, we can rebuild this place. It will become a haven for all people and aliens of the universe. Asgard blows up. Now those foundations are gone. Sorry. Hysterical line.
Mm-hmm.
Hysterical
in a vacuum.
line.
Yeah, in a vacuum, it's very funny.
In the actual moment, it does take away from the weight of Asgard being destroyed.
Yeah, it takes the piss out of it a little bit. And
Yeah.
I know the greater point of that is like Asgard is the people. It's the whole idea of like a church isn't the building, it's the people in the church.
Mhm.
It's the same idea, but and that's just kind of a piss take on that.
It's one
Yeah, I
step
agree. That's a
too
little
far.
I think now that you've mentioned, that's really the only nitpick that I can think of.
Okay, so we're kind of on the
I don't
same
think
agreement.
I don't think there's much that I didn't enjoy or didn't think, or there wasn't much that I think, oh, this kind of takes me out of the film a little bit, or this didn't age that well, or what's the deal with this thing?
Yeah. So, Branson, we're at 55 minutes, so we're going to try going fairly quick through these next few categories because we have a few more categories to hit. Mount Rushmore. You haven't gone to do this yet, so I'll explain this.
Yeah,
Mount
you explain
Rushmore
this a
is
little
obviously, there's the four people on Mount Rushmore. Who gets onto Mount Rushmore? This is kind of the idea of like, what elements of the film would make it onto Mount Rushmore if Mount Rushmore was tailored to like encompass films like this.
Okay.
So
I think
I'll explain it, and I think it will get
Yeah.
easier. Is Thor Ragnarok on the MCU Mount Rushmore of best films? The candidates could include Iron Man, The Avengers, Endgame, Guardians of the Galaxy, Winter Soldier, Spider-Man No Way Home, Black Panther, all of this. So let's just kind of break it down real quick. I think on the Mount Rushmore, it's kind of impossible to not put the first Iron Man on there. It's what starts it all. It's the George Washington.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the founding father. The Mark.
I would be in the belief that we shouldn't have multiple Avenger films on there.
Mm-hmm.
So I would personally vote for Endgame.
Agree.
To be the one.
Either Infinity War or Endgame.
Yeah, the interesting thing is you could totally easily make an argument that the Avengers deserves to be on there. The first one, just solely for how it shaped basically studios for the next 10 years of craving their own cinematic universe.
Yeah, huge paradigm shift as far as merging your properties.
But yeah, Endgame for me feels more like the end point of what everything they were building up to in the Avengers, even with the cinematic universe. So we have two spots already taken with Iron Man and the Avengers. on that list, and this is, like I said, just a few of the ones I thought could be on it. There's other ones you could argue should be on it. It would be hard to argue Black Panther doesn't deserve to be on that list. It's the only one that's been Oscar nominated. It's probably like one of the most important films to be made in the 21st century, especially for the African American community.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it'd be hard for me not to put it on there, but regardless, so without like trying to figure out our Mount Rushmore, do you think Thor Ragnarok could be the case for either the third or fourth spot? And remembering the fact that you have Guardians of the Galaxy, The Winter Soldier, Spider-Man No Way Home, Black Panther, and all the other MCU films that could be in contention, like Shang-Chi, Civil War, any of the Spider-Mans.
Man, that's a heck of a question.
Yeah, Instinct, is it yes or no?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so. I love this movie, and it's one of my personal favorites. It's definitely top 3 for me as far as favorite Marvel movies. But I don't think that you could have a MCU Mount Rushmore without Spider-Man.
It would be hard.
While Tom Holland's Spider-Man is not the first cinema Spider-Man that we got, there's no denying how important Spider-Man is to Marvel as a whole. I mean, Spider-Man's one of the most recognizable superheroes ever. I mean, when I think superheroes, the first 3 I think of are Superman, Spider-Man, and Batman.
Yeah, and we don't have to go into depth on each one because I have 4 of these Mount Rushmores. Mm-hmm. But so I will say for me,
I have 4 Mount Rushmore. Oh my goodness!
I have another one.
Okay,
I would put Guardians in the 4th spot. I think mine would be the Avengers, Iron Man, Black Panther, Guardians, because it feels like Thor cannot be a movie without Guardians.
Mm-hmm.
But Spider-Man could easily make it on.
I think I would go Iron Man, the first Iron Man. I think if it's got to be an Avengers movie, I would say Endgame would be the best one because it's representative of all the constituent parts. Right. Exactly. The first you have the first and the last, the Iron Man and first made, not first chronologically.
Everything builds up to Endgame.
Mm-hmm. Would it be too strange to do Captain America? He is the first, chronologically, the first Avenger.
I would never choose the first Avenger to make it onto my list, but I could concede that the Winter Soldier or Civil War could be deserving
on merit, I think, and then I think No Way Home would be the fairest Spider-Man to do because not only is that Tom Holland Spider-Man, but it
gets to reunite the rest.
Yeah, it represents all the other Spider-Men.
Okay, so let's do this a little bit more yes and no for the next 3.
That's a really tough question, man.
You're going to really like this next one.
All right. Hit me.
Is Thor Ragnarok on the Mount Rushmore of best celebrity cameos in a movie, with this celebrity cameo being specifically, I'm referring to Matt Damon appearing as Loki, one for having double meaning for playing a guy named Loki in Kevin Smith's Dogma, 2 for being just Kevin, or 2 for just being Matt Damon in a film. Some of the other contenders include Bill Murray in Zombieland, Tom Cruise in Tropic Thunder, Bob Barker in Happy Gilmore, David Bowie in Zoolander, Stan Lee in every MCU project.
Wait, when did Matt Damon show up in Ragnarok?
He's Loki. The play?
Oh, yeah, duh.
Yeah.
I was like,
and then
I thought you were talking about a scene where actual Loki is like disguising himself. Okay.
Yeah. So we don't have to do the Mount Rushmore. Instinct. Do you think that Matt Damon's cameo would be on a Mount Rushmore of celebrity cameos? No. Okay. No. Yeah. I mean, you already have David Hasselhoff, Bob Barker, and Bill Murray. Kind of like, to me, kind of seeming sensible. So that's
Bill Murray in what?
Bill Murray in Zombieland.
Okay, I was hoping that was the one that you chose.
All right.
That's one of my favorite cameos in anything.
I think it's probably I think that's the Washington.
Yeah,
and like Stan Lee has to be on there too for cameos for just his career,
of course.
So that's true. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I agree that there's no way.
So in a way, Ragnarok kind of gets an honorary mention because
You're right.
Stan
It
Lee
kind of does
had
get the end.
so
Yeah.
many.
Good
His
point.
cameo in this one is particularly funny.
Okay, two more cameos or two more Mount Rushmores. Is this movie on the Mount Rushmore of best third installments within a franchise? Contenders could include Return of the Jedi, Return of the King, Spider-Man No Way Home, The Last Crusade, Bourne Ultimatum, Toy Story 3, Prisoner of Azkaban, Goldfinger, Christmas Vacation. So Instinct, is this the best third installment within a franchise worthy of Mount Rushmore?
I think this is going to be one of my first sort of risky moves, but I'm going to say yes.
Okay. I'm going to say no.
Strictly because it is the best of its trilogy.
I would agree. I would totally agree with
I
that.
would say by a large margin.
To me, you already have two spots taken up with Return of the Jedi and Return of the King. Like those, and then like Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade could make that argument for me. So I'm on the fence of like it could. I don't know if I could push it to Mount Rushmore.
Yeah,
but
maybe not.
You have the argument. You definitely have the argument to make it on there. Last one for Mount Rushmore.
Okay.
Is Thor Ragnarok on a Mount Rushmore of characters getting their hair cut dramatically? Contenders include Anne Hathaway in Les Mis. Sings, I Dreamed the Dream. Coming to America, where Eddie Murphy goes to the barber shop for the first time to get a haircut in America. The Full Metal Jacket basic training sequence at the beginning of Full Metal Jacket. Richie Tenenbaum in Royal Tenenbaums. And of course, Mulan. So those are just some of the contenders. So instinctively, do you believe that this film makes the Mount Rushmore of characters getting their haircuts dramatically on camera?
Yeah.
I think it could. It's a pretty good reinvention.
I think so. And the reveal of it is awesome.
I think if I had to just do my Mount Rushmore real quick for it, you have to have Mulan.
Yeah, Mulan's
has to be
definitely out there.
I think you have to give Richie Tenenbaum and Royal Tenenbaums in it for the scene before he gets committed suicide. That's a pretty shocking scene. Mm-hmm. I think I'd have to put Fantine in Les Mis.
I think it's just Fantine, right?
Fantine?
I think so.
I think in Les Mis I have to give it. And the fourth one, I'm willing to concede Thor Ragnarok makes the fourth.
Yeah, I totally agreed. I would have done it in the exact same order.
If there is any that I forgot, please let me know in the comments. If there's any Mount Rushmores you would want to suggest, or if there's other arguments you would have against our rulings, please feel free to it. But that's the Mount Rushmore. Branson, do you like that segment? I really like that segment.
I love that.
So Chris and I, funny. The reason we embedded it was Chris and I were trying to do this thing where it's like, let's kind of do like the talking of the movie, like fun, kind of like the sports, like, is this person like a Hall of Famer? All of that. And we're like, let's do it with Rushmore. So he and I came up with that, and we really like it. I'll give you another one that's basketball related. This is called the Nemanja Bjelica F it, we deserve it guy in the movie. Wait, yeah, let me explain this.
Speak in tongues? What the hell did you just say?
Let me explain it. Nemanja Bjelica was a person on the Sacramento Kings team who famously hit a shot to win the game. I think it was against the Dallas Mavericks, or maybe it was the Houston Rockets. And in his post-game interview, remember, he's a bench player. He ends up going crazy. I think he scores like 35 points. And he says, F it, we deserve it. So who is the F it, we deserve it guy in this movie? And I have one guy who I think deserves it. This award goes out to the actor or actress who isn't just one of the big stars in the movie. Rather, they just get a few moments to come in and steal the movie for their respective scenes. For me, that's Carl Urban.
Really?
Scourge.
Uh-huh.
I think Scourge, to me, is he has some of the funniest lines in the movie. Behold my stuff. Texas.
Yeah.
The shake weight, which, by the way, that's actually Taika Waititi's shake weight that he bought in preparation for his role in Green Lantern. That is a true fact. Do you agree? Do you agree that this is the guy? Or do you have another nominee?
I got a different nominee. I'm surprised you didn't. I'm surprised you didn't choose Goldblum.
I almost thought Goldblum was a little too integral to choose it. Like, I thought that he was in the
Maybe.
film a bit too much, but I could concede that he could be on it.
It's because he is such a unique presence no matter where he is. You can't help but be just sucked into his odd mannerisms, his weird sense of humor, just the
Yeah.
way that he just his little moves, and just the way that he comes up with the next thing to say, and like you can never tell if he's improving or just sticking to the script. He's
Mm.
just he's an enigma of a man, and it takes an enigma of a man to play
The
a character
Grandmaster.
like the Grandmaster,
You're
who
right.
is an enigma. It's like,
The
who is this guy?
the introduction scene of him talking about like I'm however million years old, and he just does that smile like
Yeah,
that.
here on Sakaar.
Yeah, just this weird like grimace. It's so great. You're right. He could easily get it. I think Carl Urban and Goldblum are just great additions in the films.
Carl
I'm gonna
Urban's
somehow,
that's a good second place for me.
yeah. I'm going to somehow land this ship before we get to the great debate in about 10 minutes. So let's see if I can do this successfully.
Okay.
Let's do this category real quick. This is the this is the recasting. So we're going 1980s, 1990s.
Ooh,
I have
okay.
3 nominees real quick. Do you have your list?
Oh boy. I'm gonna let you go first.
Okay.
Just so
Tell
I
me,
get an idea of how you want to structure this.
I only did 3. I did Thor,
Okay.
Loki, and Hela.
Okay. A
Thor,
recasting from the 80s and the 90s.
80s, 90s. Yeah, that like 10,
Okay.
15 period range. I did Hela as Dame Helen Mirren. I felt she just hit the class that this film would do it. She's right about the right age. I don't love my Loki pick, but I did Ben Kingsley. He's like
Okay.
coming off Gandhi. I think he could kind of do that sarcastic dialogue of a Loki. And then Thor, I think there's only one correct choice that they would have picked in the 1980s and the 1990s. They would have just done Mel Gibson. It would have been Mel. Australian, kind of has the look, can kind of do the
Okay.
drunken belligerent, like over the top charismatic vibe to him. Those were my picks. What do you have?
Oh boy. For Thor, my first thought would be something like a almost like a Dolph Lundgren. But I know
It's not a
that he
bad
was
pick.
I mean that would be hilarious for Hulk because he was Hulk.
Mhm.
You know, in one of the original
No, that's
that
Lou
right?
Ferrigno. No.
Oh yeah, you're
Dolph
right. Lou
Lundgren
Ferrigno.
was the Punisher.
Yes. Okay, that's what it was. Yeah, I mean Lou Ferrigno would be hilarious as the Hulk. So then, okay, I feel good about Dolph Lundgren as Thor, as Loki. Loki. That's a tough one. You said who again?
I
Mel
said
Gibson.
Ben Kingsley.
Oh,
for
Ben
Loki.
Kingsley. Yeah, Mel Gibson was Thor. You said. I don't know. Tom Hiddleston is such a great fit for Loki. I don't know if
Yeah,
I could.
I had
could
trouble.
think of one.
Kingsley was the hard, or Loki was the hardest one for me to cast.
That's really tough. Hela, I think Helen Mirren is a pretty
I think
good.
she's kind of a perfect choice.
That's a pretty good choice. I'm
Okay.
looking at a list of actors and actresses, just trying to get an idea. Maybe Meryl Streep.
She's American, which is why I didn't choose her. I wanted the accent to come a little natural.
Oh, I see. Okay.
But yeah, because I thought of her, but that's why I didn't end up choosing her. So those are our recasting choices for the 1980s. Typically, it's called the 2022 recasting. However, with this film being released in 2017, I'm like, the casting really wouldn't change.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Tom Hiddleston's such a tough one. I don't know. I can't think of one that would be like an equivalent or better fit. than
Yeah,
him.
we
He's
have two
perfectly
more
cast.
categories before the hill to die on. So, second to last category, best scene. I have a few nominations. I have Thor: God of Hammers, which is the scene from Thor jumping onto the Rainbow Bridge to the tune of Immigrant Song. I think
Yes,
that
that
scene could
scene's
easily
awesome.
get. I love the Get Help scene. Get help, my brother. I think it's a
Yes.
great just beat and a good story moment. Thor versus Hulk, you have to put in there, I think.
Hmm.
And You Are Now Meeting the Grandmaster. Those would be my nominations. Are there any I'm missing, Branson?
You Are Now Meeting the Grandmaster is great. The Thor versus Hulk fight in the arena is awesome. It's the first bit that we see of of Thor like becoming the god of thunder and not just the god of hammers. I love a good heist. So the whole thing of them flying the ships, I that's just
Yeah,
pure
that's good.
bias. It
That's a good
doesn't do
scene. Yeah,
anything crazy special, but I love a heist and I love seeing cool alien ships.
yeah, agreed.
Um, everything with Heimdall because I love Heimdall.
Yeah, he's a
Uh,
good character. He's like to me the least interesting part of this movie, but he's the. It's also the best Idris Elba has been as Heimdall. He gets the most to
yeah,
do in this.
yeah, Idris Elba's cool. I love seeing him destroy the armies of the dead. I don't know. I think you got a bunch of the big ones.
Yeah,
The Are You the God
I
of
feel good in my
Hammers
list.
is a
I
great
think that's the
final.
scene in the movie.
Yeah,
Like I think that's the scene.
he
Last
unlocks his full
category.
potential.
Last category is something called movie pairings, which I decided to wanted to do because I find myself after watching a movie, I end up like, well, what are other movies like that that I want to watch?
Mm,
Or if
hmm.
like I'm in that mood for this movie. So I'll give three quick ones. One of them I'll expand upon. If you like Taika Waititi's comedic sensibilities, What We Do in the Shadows is just a pure
Oh,
comedy by Taika Waititi. It is
naturally.
nothing but a comedy. It's his funniest film by far. If you like quirky, offbeat superhero films, I think the Lego Batman movie does a great job of just being really funny
Ooh.
with a great comedic cast and plenty of laughs to be had, while also having some of the heart that Thor Ragnarok has. And my last one, I don't know if you've heard of this movie, Branson, and I have my little spiel on this one. This is going to be a little bit of an oddball choice, but like I said, one of my favorite aspects of Thor Ragnarok is that it deals with the evils of imperialism and the recontextualization of one's history, and in doing so, redefining what you stand for.
Hmm.
And there was a film I just recently saw on Netflix called RRR. Have you heard of it?
Is that the Bollywood film?
Hollywood film. It's
RRR?
Yeah, it stands for Rise, Roar, Revolt. It's a Tollywood production
Yeah,
directed by
yeah.
SS Rajamouli. Uh,
Did you learn about this from Corridor Crew?
no, I had heard about
That's
this
why
a
I
while
do know about this
while
movie, and
ago.
that's the reason why I know about it.
Yeah, I had heard about this movie being buzzed about in April or May, and it eventually came out to Netflix in May. And for those who don't know what we're talking about, this film stands for Rise, War, Revolt. It is a Tollywood film, and it tells the fictitious story of two real-life Indian revolutionaries and their battles against the British Raj in the 1920s. RRR is a 3-hour epic that is beautifully directed, well acted, and features a ton of over-the-top action. It is heavily anti-imperialist in its presentation. It's often quite symbolic. Our protagonists are folk heroes, thus their deeds are greatly exaggerated. It is not concerned with telling the story of the real life figures. Rather, through them, RRR tells the story of a country and its people fighting against oppression. Uh, I think it hits
It's a
actually a
heck
lot
of a
of the
movie.
same. Yeah, it hits a lot of the same themes as Thor Ragnarok, and its visual style is actually pretty comparable, and the action is just the right amount of superhero, like over the top feel that I think
Hmm.
it's very welcoming to new audiences who aren't particularly familiar with Hollywood productions. Branson, we got to check it out at some point. That's a movie that we
Yeah,
got to talk about at some
that
point.
would be interesting.
So those are my recommendations. Branson, do you have any movie pairings?
Mhm. Yeah. If you like the sort of colorful space adventure, Guardians of the Galaxy
Mm,
is great, both Volume 1 and Volume 2. I would lean towards Volume 1.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest
But
fan of
both,
Volume 2.
yeah, but both are great. I enjoy both of them. Just colorful, unique setting. Um, Lots of fun to be had. Lots of hilarious moments. Good action. Really cool sci-fi weaponry and stuff like that. What We Do in the Shadows is a great example of that sort of comedic styling of
Yeah, it's a
Taika.
very Taika film.
Yeah, like you said. And then a third one.
Yeah, you
Ooh.
don't have to have 3 if you don't, but I
Oh,
just had 3.
okay. Yeah, those are the two that I could really think of.
Then
Dang it!
with that
If I think of another one, I'll shout it out.
yeah, with that said, that's our discussion on Thor Ragnarok. Do you have any last thoughts on the movie before we jump over to the great debate?
I don't think so. Other than my camera is running low on battery, so if I cut out at
Then
any time, sorry.
then let's do this, ladies and gentlemen. Branson, are you ready?
Yes.
Welcome to
Welcome to the
the
great
great debate.
debate.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the great debate. You know how this works. I have a question for Branson. Branson has a question for me. This is how we cap off the show. With that all said, Branson, I'll go first with my question. Which 3 actors would you want to see in a Taika Waititi superhero movie? Doesn't have to be Thor, it just has to be a Taika Waititi superhero film.
Taika Waititi superhero movie. Pre-existing IP or new?
Doesn't matter. Just 3 actors. 3 actors or actresses.
I mean, we've seen him as a superhero before. But I think Taika and Nicolas Cage would be a really interesting mashup.
Good
I'd
pick.
love to
I
see
didn't
how
think of
they
it. Good
would.
pick.
I'd love to see how they work together. My first thought was, oh
Reynolds?
no, okay. I was gonna say Reynolds, but I'm gonna go with a different Ryan. I'm gonna say Ryan Gosling.
Good
'Cause
pick.
he
Good pick
has-
after The Nice Guys.
Yes, that's exactly
good
what I
pick.
was thinking. I love him in that. It shows that he can be funny. And Reynolds, I think Reynolds and Taika.
They were in Free
they've
Guy
been
together.
both in Free Guy together, and I enjoyed Free Guy a lot. Taika didn't direct that one.
No, he did not.
I don't think he was a writer either on that one.
No, he was just an actor in it.
Yeah. That would be kind of interesting. That's like an honorable mention, I'll say. But
Yeah.
Ryan Gosling, I feel like, is a little bit more moldable, I would say.
Yeah.
Just a little bit more. And then I'll pick an actress. Maybe it's because I've been watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine so much.
I like her. I think I know who you're picking.
Yeah, Rosa Diaz. Stephanie Beatriz.
Yeah, she's.
I kept thinking Melissa Fumero, but that's Amy.
Good pick.
Stephanie Beatriz. She's really adaptable. I don't think there are 2 characters that are more at odds with each other than Mirabel from Encanto and Diaz from Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
And she's great in The Heights as well.
Oh, that's right. She's in the Heights.
In The Heights, yeah.
She could so easily be badass with just like a little bit of a soft side. And Taika, I think, could get that from her.
Those are 3 great picks. I like my picks too, but I will admit those are 3 great picks. I had Brad Pitt as one of them. Brad Pitt is an underrated comedic actor. If you've seen him in stuff like Inglourious Bastards or Burn After Reading, you know the guy has the comedic sensibilities to just kill it. So
Megamind.
Megamind. I think the guy has a lot of comedic talent, and I think Taika is the right amount of improv/fun that would just bring out a lot of the Brad Pitt, and getting to see him work with such an interesting director. Another guy, Michael Myers, hasn't had a hit in a while. Seems like the type of comedian that Michael Myers would like to work with. A lot of improv, a lot of fun. I don't know if the styles would mesh.
Speaking of Michael Myers, did you watch the Pentaveret?
No. Is it good?
I watched the first episode. It was.
I've heard it's fine.
I was like, okay,
Yeah,
I'm not.
I heard you
interested
get
in
it really quick. I heard you you understand what it is after like 10 minutes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so I haven't watched that. Finally, this is an odd pick, but I was trying to think of somebody that I'm like, who is someone that like has the comedic sensibilities with a little bit of intensity, yet they've never like popped off in a way that I feel like they should or really could with their talent. And I was sitting there, I was like, there's an actress who I've seen who I quite like, but has very much been typecast into a certain role. And I first saw her in The 40-Year-Old Virgin with Steve Carell. And then, of course, she kind of makes a name for herself, like as the stereotypical over the top, intense coach in Glee. But I think she has a lot more like to offer, and I think there's an intensity with her comedy. I think there's just a physical presence, just an ability to hit comedy with improv, all of it that just feels like it would lean really well to Taika sensibilities. That's Jane Lynch.
Jane Lynch.
She's really talented, yet I've never seen her in something that I particularly love her in, like where she's the leading vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Taika could get a lot out of her.
That'd be interesting to see. I'm kind of imagining Jane Lynch just in her battle suit from her character in Wreck-It Ralph.
Yeah. So those are my three picks. That's my great debate question. Branson, let's have yours and we can end the show.
Okay. Ooh. My great debate. If there was a God of Hammers character, who would be the God of Hammers? Who would play the God of Hammers?
Is this even a question? I win this week. You ready?
Who would
I'm
play
gonna
the God
you.
of Hammers, and what would be the move set of this God of Hammers?
I've won the great debate this week. It's the Tool Man himself, Tim Allen.
Oh, that's good, Tim the Toolman Taylor.
Yeah, that's the only answer. It's the only answer I need.
Yeah,
I don't even know if I need it.
Already exists.
Yeah, he's Tim Allen. He can do the. That's his moveset. He just grunts and throws hammers.
Just that.
Yeah, that's it. That's my answer. So try beating that.
And throws hammers. So he's like, Donkey Kong.
Yeah, just so yeah,
or like a hammer bro.
Yeah, I have Donkey Kong. So as Tim Allen. So beat me. All the cards on your table to beat me now.
Nah, I can't. I can't beat you. Tim,
do you have any?
Tim the Toolman Taylor, Tim Allen is far too good. The only other one that I could think of would be Charles Martinet, the voice of Mario.
Not a bad answer. It's not Tim Allen.
Yeah, it's not Tim Allen.
It's not the Toolman.
It's not Tim the Toolman Taylor.
It's not Tim
that's Taylor. Too good. That's too good. It's destiny. It is. It's like poetry. It rhymes.
Yeah, and with that all said, thank you guys for listening to Ben and Bran See a Movie this week.
Thanks for humoring my worst. Yes. My worst great debate question ever.
With that all said, guys, we'll be back next week. I will either be with a co-host next week or I'll be doing it alone. I don't remember what movie's coming out next week, but it will probably be tied to that somehow. Branson, thank you for joining me on this show.
Back to the Shadow Prison for me.
Yeah, really enjoyed talking Thor Ragnarok with you.
Yes,
guys,
sir.
like I said, if you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel and leave us your reviews on Apple, on Spotify, whatever. All of it helps. Thank you guys for listening. My name is Ben Friedman, here from Ben and Bran See a Movie
Studios.
Take care. Bye-bye. Oh, you're not going to do your adios?
Oh, adios.
All right,
too long.